Hello everyone and welcome along once again to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. As always, my co-host Steve Ryder to my left, but we welcome one of our favourite guests, Johnny Ward over from Ireland. Johnny, welcome once again to the show. Good to have you on this week because we've got Irish racing to look forward to. But a little chat about the way the season's progressing so far, in your opinion, in terms of some of the stars emerging. Have you been excited by what you've seen on the flat season?
Yeah, I have, albeit I feel now that British jumps racing versus Irish racing is flipped in terms of the flat, because I think Irish racing on the flat is very much in second place at the moment, primarily because Galileo's influence is on the wane. We don't have Dubawi, we don't have Frankel. And, I spent a day at Aidan O'Brien's a couple of weeks ago and everyone was talking about City of Troy. He was down the field in the Guineas and the rest of his horses ran okay in the trials, but we didn't have a runner on Saturday in the Lockinge. And I think British racing is really dominant at the moment. So a lot will depend on the Derby in terms of City of Troy. Can he carry the mantle for the Coolmore kind of partners going forward, but I have my doubts at this stage.
Right. Keep your powder
it's going to be
dry.
exciting.
Keep your powder dry on City of Troy. We'll talk about the Derby in a bit more detail. But Steve, your overall impression of what we've seen in the last week. I saw you at Newmarket on the weekend. It's been some really good racing.
Yeah, I love York as a meeting. Some slightly surprising results, I think we could probably say there, and it's probably muddied the actual picture for the Oaks and the Derby somewhat even more. But good racing, and yeah, we had a great day at Newmarket in the sun.
Yes, we had a few laughs at Newmarket on Saturday. One horse that you think might be worth following, that you've either seen or you're waiting to see?
I like Agenda. Agenda was second in his trial, obviously to a very ill-fated winner. Agenda, when he won at Dundalk a couple of months ago, he was quite well touted, and I thought he ran a really good race jock. He was miles clear of the third horse, his stablemate, and it was only his third start, and he needs to be supplemented for the Derby, so I'm not entirely sure they will, because they have plenty of horses for the Derby, but if he keeps progressing, I think he's bang there in terms of the middle distance horses.
Yeah, he rolled around Chester so comfortably, didn't he? So that's one horse to bear in mind already, Agenda. It's time, though, now to get into this week's Racing Recap. And as Steve alluded to, we start with York and what happened at the Dante Festival on the Knavesmire. Lots of racing to reflect on, but we'll try and keep it snappy. The Clipper Stakes was won by Millstream, first of all. I'll start with you here, Johnny, on Millstream. Some good horses in behind, but I felt, given the way that Millstream was checked in the run, William Buick suggested that he would have been unlucky had he not won, that he was probably much better than the bare margin.
I was definitely value for it. Sometimes I think in races like this, it can exaggerate kind of how much you would have won by if you didn't kind of meet trouble. But he was full of running. I love this horse Attitude. He's a very interesting horse on pedigree as well. He's by Gleneagles, but he's very fast. He was an expensive yearling, and he is a half brother. I saw this morning to Asymmetric, real sprint and pedigree. And where they go next with him, I think is very interesting. It looks like Royal Ascot, which is going to be interesting. And I'd say he's just improving as well. He looks just like very, very strong kind of as a 4-year-old this season, and definitely deserved to win the race. There should be a lot more to come from him. I'm really looking forward to seeing him in an even bigger field the next day at Royal Ascot.
Yeah, I thought Ascot would probably suit him even better, considering the way he finished off the race. 8-1 currently with Bet365 for the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes. A race that's changed its name a number of times on the Saturday. Was there anything in behind that you felt could beat him again or deserves another chance?
No, I thought Diligent Harry was a bit of an eye-catcher. I thought dropping down to 5 furlongs at Royal Ascot for the King Charles III Stakes would really suit him, a stiff 5 furlongs. I don't think he quite gets that 6 furlongs. His 20-1 with Bet365 for that race. I actually am quite looking forward to Millstream stepping up to 7 furlongs later in the season. The way that the season kind of progresses, there's no 7 furlong targets early on in the year. Yeah. But later on in the season, I think 7 furlongs is probably what he wants, because he wants either a stiff 6 furlongs, which you'll get at Royal Ascot, or 7 furlongs later on in the season. You can see him ended up in something like the Foray.
Yeah, you can imagine his season. I mean, it's a shame that Goodwood hasn't turned the Lennox into a Group 1, because you can see him going Ascot and then the Maurice de Guise 6.5 and then end up in the Foray. Yeah, so good to see Millstream. Jane Chapelheim was pretty clear that Ascot was next on the agenda for him. The Musidora, Steve, I don't know what to make of Friendly Soul. Everyone saw what happened. They reported that she hung left. Well, we all saw that. Secret Satire won. She looks nice, straightforward, and an admirable filly. But is she a potential Oaks winner for you?
You'd be disappointed. The fact that she's still available at 25 to 1 with Bet365 for the Oaks kind of says it all, really. I mean, they've blown their handicap mark, haven't they? She's gone up £18 this morning, up to a mark of 103. Oisin Murphy's just brilliant in these York Epsom trials, isn't he? He won on Roaring Lion, Telecaster, and the Foxes in the Dante. Neither of those, or none of those, went on to win the Derby, and you'd be surprised if Secret Satire went on to win the Oaks. Obviously, the Musidora does have some bearing on the Oaks in recent past. Snowfall and Soul Sister both went on to this, so she probably wouldn't be without a chance. I would forgive Friendly Soul her run. She went to post absolutely fine, and then as soon as she left the gate, hung right-handed, was wide, no cover, and then I thought Kieran Schumacher had kind of got her back, and she made a bit of headway as soon as they hit into the straight, and then hung again, and there was absolutely no signs of that at Newmarket, and it was really disappointing.
Yeah, completely contrasting effort from what we saw at Newmarket, which was a really honest, straightforward filly, and then something clearly amiss.
I'd give her the benefit of the doubt going that way. Then change it back to maybe a more conventional track the next day. But like, she was very, very strong in the market in what was a good race. She's obviously a lot better than that. In terms of Mayfair, she ran sort of okay. She might be able to step up and trip. But I don't know if this race will have an awful lot of relevance for the Oaks. I think maybe we saw better trials, including the Guineas itself, for the Oaks.
Yeah, okay. More about the Oaks in just a second. I think once we've done the Dante, we might have a reflection on the Derby and the Oaks picture. Let's talk about the Middleton Philly Stakes. Blue Stocking. She's been a horse that, if you look through her form from last season, and even the season before, that you think she's very good, but she doesn't win very often. And Rafe Beckett was not confident before the race that she was going to do what she did. I mean, no one could have been confident looking at her record, but that was mightily impressive.
It was an extraordinary performance, and like the race was won a long, long way out. I'm not sure Free Wind was that far below her best either. And to win by 6 lengths, that brings her into the territory of basically a career best performance. And again, she looks like a horse who has definitely improved from 3 to 4. Does she go for the Coronation Cup now? It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, she is 8 to 1. Bet365 for the Coronation Cup. What do you think of that as a prospect for her?
I thought the trip brought out improvement in her. Both Steve Mellish and I on the show last week questioned her attitude in the finish. I was particularly disappointed with the way that she appeared to throw the race away at Chester, but they put cheap pieces on her for the Filly and Mares race on Champions Day. And I just thought there she might have been outstayed over a mile and a half. And I then looked through her upcoming entries over a mile and 2, and they still had her in the Tatzel's Gold Cup, which I assume will obviously come too quickly for her. She's only in the Hardwick at Royal Ascot, because I was hoping that something like the Prince of Wales Stakes might be there. But I've eyed up an entry later on in the Pretty Polly. And looking through the initial entries in that, she'd have the likes of Jackie O and Lumiere Rock to beat. So it wouldn't look the strongest of contests. If they want to keep it to Mare's company, I thought that would be a really good race to target for her. She was really good last year, but just couldn't win. She placed in 2 Group 1s, a Group 2, 2 listed races. But now she's got that win, and I thought she travelled particularly well in cheap pieces over that trip. And it's worth remembering she finished, half a length second in the Irish Oaks. So she can travel over to Ireland, and I thought the Pretty Polly would be an ideal next target for her.
I don't think the owner has anything else in the Pretty Polly as well. So yeah, mile and 2 with the Curragh, absolutely. Perfect.
Okay, exciting options then. But she is clearly a filly of great ability, and now able to show it, judged by that performance. She blitzed her field in the Middleton. Blue Stocking, looking forward to seeing what she can do for the rest of the season. Now, the big race, the big talking point of the whole week at the Dante Festival was the race itself, after which the meeting is named, and Economics was a hugely impressive winner. Now, the story, very quickly, for some people who may not know, is that he was in the Derby. He was taken out of the Derby by William Haggas and his team, so that they wouldn't be tempted to run in the Derby. He still went for the Dante. He won by 6 lengths, and now the Derby remains a temptation. Figure, as they say. Go figure.
Yeah, it's kind of like dressing kind of shabbily so you don't stay out all night. I'm not going to be tempted. This is mad stuff. I can't remember a horse winning the Derby who was, you're in, but then taken out. And Criskin was in, was taken out, and then went back in.
He was taken
20 odd years ago.
Yeah, 21 years ago, something like that.
Wow.
He was taken out by Sir Michael Stout. He then won at Chester, dumped Fergal Lynch when he won, and then supplemented, won the Derby.
I feel, and you're looking at the prices if he runs here, I feel he should be favoured if he runs. And the weird thing is it the half-sister by Dawn Approach won a bumper. So there is definitely a sign. A lot has been made of the fact that he's by a sire in Night of Thunder who wouldn't necessarily be considered. But Night of Thunder, there's nothing to say he's not going to get a 1.5 mile horse. And he just stayed on so well here, I think. And I think it was a proper trial for me. I'm not sure, the Bahraini owner, I'm sure there'd be a massive prestige for the royal family in Bahrain to have the winner of the Derby. I feel that they will, put him back in because I think he should be favoured. There's so much doubt about City of Troy, and there, the others, as I mentioned, other horses have fallen by the wayside in the Derby picture. And in fairness to Willie Haggs, you look at Baid, he's very, very patient and he'll take his time. They've got to be tempted. It's still the Derby. They've got to be tempted, and he's favoured if he goes.
Johnny sums it up. You've got a horse who blew out in the 2,000 Guineas. Blew out badly in the 2,000 Guineas. Who's 2-1 favourite with Bet365 for the Derby.
Who has absolutely no guarantee to get a 1.5 mile as it is.
So many question marks about that horse, who's the 2-1 favourite for the Derby. Then you've got the 6th-length winner of the Dante, who's maybe not even going to run in the race. What do you make of that?
I mean, let's call a spade a spade. The Derby's a mess, isn't it? Like
Hidden Law would have been my idea of the winner.
Yeah.
And then he lasted a few seconds after winning his trial.
Yeah.
Which is,
a bit of soft ground, and I'd give Ancient Wisdom another chance stepping up in trip because I thought, not that it would affect the result, but I thought Tom Arquand did a brilliant piece of race riding to sneak up on the outside of William Buick, who was travelling really well on Ancient Wisdom and kind of kept him in a pocket. And I'm sure William Buick would want that race back because once Economics had gone past, he kind of went, well, I'm not going to be able to catch him, and kind of, I don't think he was too hard on him. So as a trial for Epsom, I would say, as Steve Mellish and I said on the show last week, I do think soft ground's important to him. So if you do get a soft ground Derby, he would definitely shorten from his odds of 14-1 with Bet365 currently.
So just very quickly on him, he didn't look as well as I've seen him in the paddock before. Didn't look terrible.
No.
But there were other horses in the race, like Economics, who stood out
Yeah.
in their coat and
Economics look well.
He looked terrific. Absolutely. I mean, I know it's obviously people saying, but I did say at the time beforehand, he looked outstanding, and he's a good-looking, big, strong, bruisable horse as well.
And it's interesting. It's not the same thing, but Anthony Oppenheimer deliberately hadn't put Golden Horn into the Derby because of his breeding, didn't think he'd get the trip, hacked up in the Dante, supplemented and went to win the race. Economics is a slightly different type because he's a bigger horse and whether he'll handle Epsom, but I don't think you can win this trial by 6 lengths and not go for it. Yeah. Albeit that if they took him out to avoid temptation in the thought that he might do this, well, he's done this now, hasn't he?
Aidan has so many runners as well that he could conceivably run 5 or 6. Very hard to know what the tactics will be like on the day. But for me, with Economics, it's not so much stamina, it's will he handle, if they are that worried about the track. Other than that, I'd make him favourite for the race. He's far more solid than the favourite. And let's be honest, like he's bolted up in the Dante, so that was well up there with City of Troy's best 2-year-old sort of ratings.
Yeah. The day after the race, I managed to speak to William Haggas very briefly on the phone. He was very cagey, and he said, I know I'm being cagey. He said, all I'm going to say, I said, can we say something to the viewers? And he said, all I'm going to say is the owner is a very sporting man and up for anything. And I thought that is pretty indicative of how serious a consideration it is. Yeah. It's not simply a case of, well, we've taken temptation out there. It's bang in the middle of the table.
Well, also it sounds like
he's
an owner that will defer to the trainer a bit, unlike some other owners we might have heard about in the last week or two.
Yeah, we'll get to that as well a bit later on.
Because you can imagine how tricky it is for a trainer when you're trying to tell an owner. Also an owner from a different culture in a different country. I don't really want to run him in the Derby here, even though he's favourite. Yeah. So you have to have a good relationship there.
So if
would you run him?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, the Derby's still the greatest.
Still the Derby, yeah. And if he doesn't stay or he doesn't handle the track, it's not the end of the world.
No, exactly. Yeah. And he would be. I mean, Tom Marquand is a great jockey, and he will know how to look after him. And I think if he runs in the Derby, he wins personally.
He'll go a favourite, and I'd have him the most likely winner. I think the Derby picture is a mess. Unless it's soft ground, and I'd fancy Ancient Wisdom to get a lot closer over a 1.5 mile trip, I think he'd go off, what? What do you think he'd go off, 7-4?
Well, it depends, because the problem with what he might go off is what goes on with City of Troy. Because if they decide that they're going to back City of Troy on the day. I mean, what happens if Michael Tabor goes, I'm going to back him? You know, that's...
August Rodin only went off 9-2, though. So it was,
Well,
it's a similar sort of...
It is a similar story, yeah, but I mean, they didn't say August Rodin was going to win the Triple Crown and then the Breeders' Cup.
Aidan told me to back August Rodin like 2 or 3 weeks before the Derby. He was very, very, yeah, absolutely. But for me, August Rodin was physically, and that was a sort of this off the record conversation. It's like, you know, basically, have you maintained faith in this horse? Absolutely, no doubt. Now, August Rodin has run like up and down so much,
yeah.
But with City of Troy, like I said to Aidan, I was like, has he trained on? And he said, what's trained on? Horses don't not train on. They have problems if they don't. He wasn't saying he has. But it was such a bad performance, and the excuses were so many and so questionable. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I couldn't. There was just something about that performance that made me really worry about the horse has he trained on. And then you throw in the fact he has to handle Epsom in a potentially big-ish field. He has to stay the trip. He has to go over and do everything right after an inexplicably bad run in his only 3-year-old
Also, he would have to be ridden slightly differently than the way he's been ridden. All his races, he's been gunned from the front. Not gunned, but he's been...
He has been gunned a bit, yeah.
Hard.
Yeah.
You couldn't... I don't think you could do that around... Unless, you know, I know 1 or 2 horses have made all the running, a slip anchor and stuff like that, but whether you could do that in the Derby after the back of that run in the game... Okay, so...
The other problem is, he left us in no doubt, he's definitely superior to everything else. So that means every other Derby horse you want to back from Maidens is inferior to a horse that's really I've my grave doubts about.
Right, who wins the Derby?
I think if economics is supplemented, he's definitely the one for me. I do like Agenda, but he needs to be supplemented as well.
Yeah.
So I'd be looking at that. He's like 33-40 to 1, I think.
Okay. Who wins the Derby?
I would think we're going to have some rain. I'd probably go Ancient Wisdom at the prices at 14 to 1, knowing that you've got a guaranteed run.
Okay. Oh, for my golf, I hope it doesn't rain, but for your bet, then I hope it does.
I haven't backed him yet. I'll go on to a couple that I have backed.
Okay. All right. I mean, who knows? Who knows? There have been occasions when Aidan O'Brien's run a horse in the Irish Guineas and then fired them off to Epsom. But let's wait and see on that. But at least we've got as much information as we can on that picture.
Well,
can I ask?
Is it true though? It's like we spent 80 to 90% of the Ballydoyle visit talking about a horse who was down the field in the Guineas. It was like Rough Scott's Sunday Times article on the Guineas was 80% about the horse that was down the field when you had a really good unbeaten winner.
Yeah,
I was like, we're buying into the hype here that now is kind of like, I don't know. And I'd love if he came back, you know.
Oh, it would be great. It would add to the season enormously if he came back. Right, okay, we should also do a recap on the Oaks as well. Who is the likeliest Oaksman? I'll start with you here.
I said on the show last week, I think Ylang is still probably the most likely winner. None of these trials have blown me away, and I always think that the Guineas is the best trial for the Derby and the Oaks. I just think standing in a box is getting shorter and shorter each week.
9-4 with Bet365. Rubies are red 4-1. Ezaliah 9-2. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Irish 1,000 Guineas a little bit later on, but your likeliest winner of the Oaks at this stage?
Funny enough, I do actually like the 3 Irish horses here. Rubies are red would be my slight preference. I'm not certain Lang is going to get a 1.5 miles, to be honest. I'm actually not. I did like her running, really liked her run at Newmarket, but Rubies are red. She just looks like she's really progressing, and she'll be very, very solid for the race. Would have learned a lot from her trial.
I actually like one in there, Big Price, who's due to run in the Irish Guineas this week, or possibly going to run the Irish Guineas this week, and it's Buttons, who's 33-1 for the Oaks. And I know she might run in the Irish Guineas, but it's not unusual for Aidan to go Irish Guineas and Epsom Oaks, or the Oaks at Epsom.
Would she be? So she would have to. Would she stay by Kingman? Maybe.
She may not stay on by Kingman, but her dam Wonder of Wonders ran a great race in the Oaks.
Yeah, that's right.
And she certainly stayed. So
as far as I know, she does run at the weekend anyway.
Well,
but as you say, it wouldn't be unlike. It's like, hey, you know, let's throw her up. Let's throw her at the Oaks as well.
Yeah. Well, she's a filly I like anyway, and it's an interesting angle. So we haven't solved anything. Let's talk about some other races that happened at York. Big Evs. He returned with great style. I love this comeback run. He won that listed race, the Westow Stakes. He goes to the King Stand, or the King Charles III Stakes. 7-2 favourite with Bet365. How impressed were you with the comeback? Mick Appleby said he was more nervous about that race than the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, I mean, sizes of 3-year-olds on their reappearances have been kind of a big topic this year, and he hadn't really grown that much, but he'd filled out. He looks like a proper sprinter now. I thought Tom Marquand was really good on him. Took his time because he'd been a bit of a keen front runner, and I thought he was a lot more tractable in this race. Yeah, obvious target to go 5 furlongs rather than stepping up in trip to the Commonwealth Cup. Likely to be retired to start at the end of the season. Nice horse, and it probably shows the fact that the division is lacking some of these key marquee sprinters this year. It was a fantastic day for Tom Marquand. I thought he rode the track brilliantly at the whole meeting. That was his treble. That day, won the opener on Clarendon House, and he's going to head back to the Dash where he's got unfinished business.
Yeah.
He's a nice horse, Big Ed. I like that sort of that bull of a sprinter, like Blue Points had a great run of it. It's interesting to say he's going to have his 3-year-old campaign and then straight to studs. Yeah. Another of these. I do like this horse going forward though as a 5 furlong out and out 5 furlong horse. And as you mentioned, it's good that he's less a prisoner to one tactic as well and handles Ascot very well.
And that's a great point because obviously he was so prepared to be lightning out the gates for the Breeders' Cup because he had that good draw and he didn't want to miss it. Nice to see him relaxed and more settled. And it was a terrific, as you say, terrific day for Tom Marquand on his backside the day before and bounced back impressively. The Yorkshire Cup, Giovallotto won for the second year, joining the likes of Stradivarius and Ardros, to mention some great stayers.
Ardros, yeah, there we go.
I don't think Giovallotto is quite in that category, but clearly the Knavesmire at York, it's his bag.
He's a very, very good horse in his day as well. Vauban is interesting because he's gone back to Ascot, I believe, and he's gone back to Australia as well, and he destroyed him. As you say, he really likes York. Tower of London was disappointing, I thought. But a couple of stayers at the moment I did want to mention. I might mention a Piece of Heaven who won the lady amateurs race in Leopardstown, who's gone to run in one of the 3 staying races at Ascot. He's a really, really interesting horse. He's getting to the category of being very good. And Vauban is ridden by Buick because he's going to go back to ride him in Ascot, I believe. And they're all systems go for the Melbourne Cup game. But Giovallotto was a proper good horse in his day. Yeah. And I do imagine he might make a nice national hunt sire in time as well.
Yeah, the Irish Ledger, I think Marco Botti was saying further down the line is his main target.
Yeah, I said on the show last week he'd be disappointed if he won this because it looked a stronger renewal.
Yeah. Tower London bombed out. Yeah,
but actually, it was a brilliant performance. Like there was no excuses for Vauban. He'd probably come on for the run. Gregory the same. But I mean, the fact that Oisin Murphy could turn around and check where Ryan Moore was kind of says it all. Really, they're adamant that he doesn't want the 2.5 mile trip for the Gold Cup, which is fair enough. And yeah, Irish St Ledger, he'd be a strong player in it, I think.
Yeah, the Lockinge took place on last Saturday. A huge shock for most people. Audience, we all thought was in there as a pacemaker for Inspiral. Made all the running just about under Rab Havlin to win at 22-1. Now, it's not the first time in the Lockinge, actually, that a pacemaker's done it. Fly to the Stars did it way back when pacemaking for Intercab for Godolphin and Cape Cross, the sire of See the Stars, no less. He did it when he was pacemaking for Cahal. So it's happened before. Yeah, I must admit, I didn't think Audience was capable of doing that. He used to be a tearaway.
Yeah, I thought it was a strange race, to be honest. Now, I was mad against Big Rock here on the basis that the ground is completely different and they're going to 100% set this up for Inspiral, right? And then I was kind of looking at the race, like, this horse has gotten a bit of a freebie here, and if you have a pacemaker in a race, and Ballydoyle and Coolmore learned this over the years, you can't run a no-hoper as a pacemaker because if the pacemaker is ignored, the pacemaker may as well not be there. Yeah. And this horse was good enough not to be ignored. It was nibbled at in the betting. I thought Sharian really emerged with massive credit because, like, what are we talking? 6.5 lengths back to third, and Sharian just seems again another 4-year-old who's actually progressing with racing. For me, he was the one to take out of the race because I think everyone was looking to see this horse is going to come back. Inspiral did okay. I think the race is a bit of a mess for her, to be honest. I wouldn't be giving up on her at all. But it was a strange renewal of the race, I thought.
Almost as strange was the chat pre-race and post-race. Pre-race, the day before, John Gosden had said on an excellent interview he did on ITV that he was concerned about her being drawn in one and being on the wing, middle of the track. So Audience ploughs a furrow down the middle of the track, which you kind of assume was for Inspiral to follow. Yeah, she ends up on the stand-side rail. After the race, he then said, well, she wasn't quite fit anyway. I'm confused.
We were stood in the parade ring at Newmarket watching it, and I said, Havlin, you need to turn around. You've lost Inspiral. And then I was on Charing and said, that's all right, he'll come back. He's never ran over further than 7 furlongs, and he just never came back. I mean, he apparently was going to head to Hong Kong. They've kept him in training as a lead horse for Inspiral, and I bet they're glad they did.
Isn't this a thing, though? Should more connections not run pacemakers in races of adequate ability? First of all, you're putting the horse in there might be a pace bias actually on the day, right? But to hurt the chances of other rivals, and it's entirely legitimate. Like this work, if they hadn't run this pacemaker in the race, Inspiral disappoints, and Big Rock might get a soft lead on another day. I just think it should be done more often. I was even thinking if Archibald had a pacemaker against Hardy Hughes, as Archibald passed away the other day, if Hardy Hughes had been taken on up front, Archibald wins that champion hurdle all day long. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It just makes a lot of sense, like to have something up front to help you along.
But Ballydoyle did it for years, didn't they? And then they've stopped doing it, which I don't like. I know you obviously spoke around agenda earlier. I think he'd be ideal for that because he's good enough that you can't let him have a soft lead. He obviously likes doing it because he got that kick off the bend at Chester, and he'd be the ideal candidate for it. But for the last 2-3 years, they've just stopped doing it.
Maybe keep an eye out for him for the Ledger as well if he doesn't go to Epsom, because he's just a horse that will gallop. He's very, very good, tactically versatile. But yeah, I just felt the race itself was kind of you're looking at the horse in behind. Big Rock for me would just be more effective on soft ground. Simple as.
Okay.
I think looking at the Queen Anne market, like Charon's now favourite at 5-1. You've got Inspiral 11-2, Factor Cheval 11-2, Big Rock and Audience are both 10-1. Like out of all of those, I'd be with Johnny. I'd prefer Charon for that. He's a progressive 4-year-old, and on another day, I think he could have won that race. Whereas I think if you ran that again, Big Rock and Inspiral would still have absolutely no hope.
Yeah, I would say that, considering everything that took place on that day. Also, there was, I thought, a really impressive performance in the Aston Park Stakes from Middle Earth, who was held up at the back in that race, kept to the inside by Oisin Murphy, but flew home to beat King of Conquest narrowly in the end. Desert Hero, we were watching the race, and he was a bit disappointing because he travelled all right, but it just looked flat. Yeah,
just maybe Rand came too soon from the race at Sandown. Yeah, you got a good kick from this. I
love Middle Earth, yeah.
I thought he'd struggle on the reappearance. We had a chat pre-race, and I thought he'd struggle to find that extra bit on the ratings on his reappearance, but I thought Oisin Murphy gave him an absolutely great ride.
The families, well, the dam Rohern, I think Ger Lyons trained her.
That's right.
Siege of Troy, not City of Troy, but Siege of Troy, who's by Sayuni, only made the debut, was it, at the weekend for Johnny Murtagh, Philly, and I had been racing.
Ran really well.
Well. I'd been racing the day before. She was scratched for some reason, and I was really looking forward to seeing her run. But Buckaroo's in that family as well. It's a really good family.
She probably should have won, actually.
And to be fair, I think first time out, maybe Johnny Murtagh leave them with a bit on. But Middle Earth being by the late Roaring Lion for the same connections, I do wonder, like, this horse could be quite interesting going forward as a sire as well.
Half a share's gone to Australia.
Wow.
So I think the plan is Royal Ascot, and then he goes down under for the Melbourne Cup specifically. But Kieran Mayer, who's bought who's taken half the share in the horse, is saying that they think they could win Group 1 races with him, certainly down under over a mile and a half, mile and a quarter, which, looking at the way he quickens in Europe, I mean...
And it's the lineage as well of Roaring Lion continuing because of that, you've just a short kind of time span there.
I know it's irrelevant because it's not a handicap, but the handicap was impressed, up 9 to 111, just to bear in mind. So, very impressive. But I would say fast ground, very important to him. I hated the soft ground in the Ledger last year.
He's heading to the right spot, Middle Earth.
Yeah, definitely.
On Earth. The Canavan Stakes, I'm going to let Steve talk about this because I was watching the race in the paddock from afar, and I could see his smile.
That sounds very nice. I was watching him watching the race.
It was a little bit stalkerish, actually. But the smile on his face kept widening from 2 furlongs to the winning post. I mean, that was hugely impressive.
I loved it. This was the performance. I know Economics got all of the plaudits for his Dante run, but this was the performance of the week for me. I loved it. I mean, this guy was an absolute beautiful specimen last year, was really impressive on his first couple of starts, kind of ran well at Royal Ascot, finished 3rd, albeit the Norfolk hasn't worked out particularly well. Didn't run too well in France after that, but they've given him plenty of time, returned after 231-day break, looked right back to his best, beat race-fit rivals in Relief Rally and a day in Devon. There was no fluke around it, was strong to the line. Vanique comes out, obviously, on the Sandy Lane and is a worthy favourite on what they achieved, both as juveniles. But wow, I'd prefer to be backing him at 8-1 with Bet365 for the Commonwealth Cup right now. And yeah, this is one of the bets that I've had for Royal Ascot. I was blown away by its risk.
The Commonwealth Cup's a great race.
Yeah.
It's such a good addition. And then all these non-stayers.
Its status as a Group 1 is under threat.
Yeah, wow. I didn't know. There we go. This is going to be a hell of a renewal this year. I'm not sure. Aidan has a couple of horses that in it that might run if they don't. The Wooden Basset horse runs in the Guineas, who, if he doesn't stay, whose name escapes me at the moment, he might come in here. River Tiber. If he runs, the way that I was just talking to Aidan today, we get to the second half show. The way the ground is shaping up now at the Curragh, it might kind of change his views. But he's 14-1. It's going to be a hell of a race this year.
Okay. Yes, elite status, massively impressive. He won the National Stakes at Sandown, which is a race that'll come into our discussion a little bit later on. Before we talk about anything else of horses-wise performances, can we just have a quick chat about the whole King of Steel, Ammo Racing? Saw Matt Chapman's interview with Kia Jarabchian on the weekend.
Gotta ask you, do you like doing those interviews when you're live, and you know the way you almost doorstop connections? I'm getting very wary of them now because people sometimes they just don't want to talk to you live. I don't know, how do you find it?
Yeah, it's not the easiest when they say just can you, and you do it live.
Because they can't say no if the camera's looking at them live, but then you gotta cover yourself in some glory in the interview.
Quite often I often say to them, I said, I'm really sorry.
You're such a nice guy.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And if you don't want to, I don't mind. And I could just talk about their horse until they're ready to talk, or if they say go away, and I go and harass somebody else. Because people think, oh yeah, look at these idiots just doing it. But it's quite awkward for us.
It is.
As well as it is for them. So,
what did you make of the interview?
I thought it was a terrific interview.
Yeah.
I thought both Matt and Kia made it entertaining. But I have to be honest, I thought Kia came out of it badly.
Did not come out well, and Adrian Murray has 14 2-year-olds running for this owner this year, and at the one level it's amazing I have this opportunity, but this is not a straightforward owner.
It's the whole idea of the fact that he has thrown Roger Varian under the bus.
And how classy Roger Varian has dealt with this in the media.
What did you think?
I couldn't believe it, to be honest. And then he's come out the next day and spoken to Nick Luck, and is under the same thing. One of the comments in that interview was, we don't move horses. Well, you do. And you've kind of got to take it with a pinch of salt, because you've got to accept the horses, because they're high class, big, expensive yearlings. Yeah. They spend their money at the sales, and you've kind of got to train for him, but you've also got to train with him for the knowledge that if you string two bad runs together, that they're going to leave your stable.
Obviously, the flip side is that they can do whatever they want. Every owner can do what they want. They're paying the bill. So ultimately, he can do whatever he wants. But I think from our point of view, or people watching, you kind of think there's a certain way of going about things.
Well, there's also a certain way in terms of, you don't train a football team and completely change the squad in the middle of the season. You don't train a horse race to have this kind of almost what looks a knee-jerk move. I slagged Paul Nicholls about, I actually met him at Punchestown and slagged him about not running the horse that they bought for 750 grand at Cheltenham, because he said he needed to acclimatise, and he said we actually had him ready for entry. We did, but he wasn't right. But he genuinely, some horses on Voile Lane, it took him a while to realize you don't just flip the horse to another yard in the middle of the season and think everything will be fine. So regardless of the ethics of it, that's just not good practice.
Yeah. Okay. That was a brief word about what's happened there. Hopefully, everybody's going to come out better for it, but unfortunately I don't think Kia did himself any favours with that interview on the weekend. Anything else equine performances wise over the last week or so? I mean, I'm going to very quickly mention the horse that I liked last week, London City, who I think could develop into something very good. He still looks so green winning at York, didn't he? There was one point where I think he touched a massive price in running, but he's strong at the finish of the race. Mile 6, possibly Queen's Vase might be his race.
Yeah. Well done for you for flagging up. I couldn't quite believe the SB when it came through.
Nor could I.
But yeah, a nice performance and a really good attitude from the horse. There was a few that took my eye. I thought Botanical was the standard group horse in a handicap. I was really impressed with his victory. Was a late non-runner at Chester on account of the ground being too fast. So just bear in mind that if you kind of keep an eye on anti-post markets for Royal Ascot. With regards to the ground, he's up £10 to 107, which means that group races will probably be on the cards for him. Thought Devoted Queen was really good. She actually won the race before Notable Speech at Kempton. That good all-weather prep. Both of those are now unbeaten. She won the listed Michael Seeley Stakes in a first-time hood. I thought that really helped her.
Last week I had a bit of a rant about people going on about the all weather is now this season. The all weather's
Producing the Guinea winners.
It's like we've only just invented the all weather. It's been around for a long time.
We also had a very wet winter, you know. So
I was impressed with Devoted Queen. She's 12-1 with Bet365 for the Coronation Stakes, and the way that both the Guineas are looking at the minute in the Phillies equivalent, 12-1 seems perfectly fair for Devoted Queen in that. I thought Lead Artist was very, very good. He finished second in the Wood Diss and was a bit colty in the preliminaries. I didn't actually see any pre-race whether he was better behaved
here. He was much better behaved.
Reversed form emphatically with first conquest in receipt of £6. He's a lovely horse. Dubawi out of a Frankel mare, so really well bred. And then there was two for the Albany Stakes that really took my eye. When we were at Newmarket, I thought Mountain Breeze was brilliant under a penalty. It does take some doing in these novice races to win under a penalty, and she did it at the minimum of fuss under Pat Dobbs. She read us the step up in trip to 6 furlongs. Fairy Godmother would be the other one who's chucked a hat into the ring for that race. She stayed on well to win that Group 3 in Ireland by a neck to Sparkling Sea, reverse in that form. Really strong in the market again. I think they sent her off about 4-7 on debut, and again was nearly even money on the day. They're 13-8 and 100-30 for the Albany Stakes with Bet365, and they'll take a fair bit of whacking in the Albany Stakes at Royal Ascot.
Fairy Godmother was good.
Yeah.
I'll give just a few stayers. Birdman won the Yates Stakes at Navan. He's only raced once. He stayed on really well. Won Cosley against a well-touted Ballydoyle horse. Now, Ballydoyle had 2 in the race and one was scratched, but Birdman, Free Eagle, really staying pedigree. He was good. And I really like A Piece of Heaven. He won off a rating of, what was he running off? He's running off like 90 odd at Leopardstown, and in those races to have somebody like Anya O'Connor is a big help. You know, there would be some jockeys lacking experience, others that wouldn't have a lot of experience at Leopardstown. And he got a kind of a soft lead, but like he's been trained for Royal Ascot, 100% the peak of Royal Ascot. And Barry Fitzgerald, who trains like any variety of horses, like in terms of National Hunt, fast horses, this is a good stayer. He just looks really, really smart, and I'm looking forward to him at Royal Ascot. And obviously Kyprios, you know, it's kind of hard to know what to make of him at the moment. He's beaten the same horse the last twice. He's been trained for Royal Ascot. I think he's only 5-4th Gold Cup, but he does look kind of like he's coming along nicely. So we've got some good stayers, and we have. I think Ireland will have a bit of depth in Royal Ascot, and it'll be spread out over different yards as well.
Okay. Mentioned Betty Clover, who won for Eve Johnson Horton, the Marygate Stakes up at York. That was a pretty good performance and a very good ride as well. And elsewhere, Bucanera Fuerte came back after a layoff to win in Ireland on the weekend. I thought that's definitely worth a mention. And obviously, any win of the London Gold Cup should be given some recognition. And King's Gambit looks very good, and well done to Harry Charlton, the stable, flying along at the moment. One more thing.
Yeah, just Devil's Point won the German 2000 Guineas, gave David Munizier his first classic victory. Sylvester de Souza, man of the moment.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice performance. Apparently heads to the Prix Maurice de Geest, I think.
Horse to Follow on ITV, put up by...
Wow, who was it?
Devil's Point. Some very good... A handsome judge, a very handsome judge.
Hewick ran very well as well.
What a run in the front!
Yeah.
I was at where was I at Wexford on the day, and it's like it just seemed like everyone was in France. Like you were running like Malheur Mission went over, finished 4th, picked up 40 grand or something. Basically a Grand National horse, and it just seems like the Irish Point was running, Home by the Lee, Mr. Incredible. So Hewick, like maybe the ground wasn't as soft as they're saying. Sometimes in France they give descriptions to me that are just not quite as soft as it. Like very soft at France in May. Anyway, but he ran a blinder and that was a hell of a run.
Belting run from Hewick in the French champion hurdle behind Losange Blue. Okay, that has been this week's Racing Recap. Now, just before we get into our weekend preview, just to let you know that our sponsor, Bet365, have a best odds guaranteed offer. It is available on every single UK and Irish race from 8 a.m. on the day of the race. If you take a price and the SP is bigger, Bet365 will pay you at the bigger odds. Full T's and C's can be found on the website. Now it is Irish Guineas weekend at the Curragh. Irish 2,000 guineas, Irish 1,000 guineas. Let's deal with the 2,000 guineas first of all, because it's possible we may see a fair few of the horses that ran at Newmarket in its equivalent, and many people are saying, best renewal we've seen at Newmarket for many a year. There's a possibility of Rosalian, Hartum, Ghostwriter, who knows, Al Yanabi. At least they're still in it as we about to preview. What's your reading on the race at the moment? Might we see Henry Longfellow in that?
I think he's going to head straight to the St James's Palace was the last thing I heard.
Yeah, he's not going to the Curragh anyway. That's last week. Yeah.
I thought the UK kind of held the key to this. I thought Rosalian would prove hard to beat. Many comparisons were made between him and Camford Cliffs in the build-up to the 2000 Guineas, rightly so, and I'm hoping he can emulate him winning this, having placed in the 2000 Guineas, just like Camford Cliffs in 2010. The eye was drawn to him throughout the race in the 2000 Guineas. I know Notable Speech ended up winning fairly comfortably, but I thought Rosalian travelled so well into that race. You just hope that they don't get too much rain prior to it, because even in the build-up to the Guineas, they said, we're not going to run on soft ground. So from what Johnny's obviously previously said around rain this week, that would be a slight concern if you're looking at backing him anti-post for it. But if you look at what Aidan's got, like, unquestionable, I wouldn't be too worried around him. And I thought the UK would win this for the third time in 6 years.
Yeah, I'd be concerned about unquestionable definitely seeing out a stiffly run mile.
Yeah.
Obviously, he got it in Santa Anita, but that was around a bend. And
he's coming back as well. I think he sort of implied he might come on for the run a bit. I'm with Steve on Rosalian here. I think he is the best Blue Point horse so far that we've had, but the key here is just to wade with the ground, because there's a lot of rain forecast today. When I was talking to Aidan O'Brien this morning, they were getting a lot of rain. Thunderstorms forecast. With the climate situation now as well, it can be very localised. You can get almost like flash flooding in one area and a few miles down the road, very little. Yeah. So this will be like if it's soft ground, Rosalian probably won't run, I would have thought. And I know that Richard Hannon says he wants to run the two of them, but like Steve said, he travelled so well at Newmarket. He's trained on really well. And funnily enough, after the race, Richard Hannon sort of said I think he might have needed the run a little bit, or he had a blow afterwards, and he did get a little bit tired. I'd be all over him on good ground, like all over him. I'd be really struggling to see him not confirm form with Hatem. Hatem has been very impressive as well, considering how hard he was raced as a 2-year-old. I suppose the sad thing is when you see what City of Troy did to him as a 2-year-old, how badly he ran at Newmarket. Another couple of horses to mention as well, just if I can, in terms of what might run. Aidan is probably going to run City of Tyburn, unquestionable, as I said.
River Tiber.
River Tiber, rather, City of, I'd say River Tiber just might be a bit better over shorter and might drop back and trip. Funny enough, I must give a mention to Take Me to Church as well, Jack Davison's horse. I definitely felt that his performance at Leopardstown was not an accurate reflection of his ability. It was a mess of a race, and he was kind of prominent in a race in which it paid to be held up, but he's very, very bullish about him, and he loved the ground regardless of what way it is. So he'd probably be like 50 to 1 or something, but don't rule him out.
Okay, Take Me to Church, an interesting name to remember. Rosalian, yes. I think the interesting thing about the Guineas at Newmarket wasn't that Notable Speech outspeeded Rosalian. He outstayed him, I think. I think if it was on speed, Rosalian was the best horse in the race.
Travelled so well.
And he just... They clocked some incredibly quick fractions. One of the strongest run Guineas that I can remember in recent times, and that was what paid for Notable Speech in the end. He went away from the quicker horse in second. So if the ground's all right, I also agree Rosalian would be the one. But if it doesn't, and Hatem does run, he's been so consistent. He looks an improved model this season.
His dad won the race, Phoenix of Spain, actually.
And he goes with cutting the ground like he did when he won at Goodwood. So that would be the play. The 1,000 Guineas, I've already alluded to a horse I'm hugely keen to see, Buttons. But what is your take on what's going to run, what might not run?
Yeah, as of sort of the other day, Aidan was going to run, I'd say he might run 3 or 4 in this race.
Everlasting?
Everlasting, Buttons, he's going to run, just get it up here, he's going to run the filly that's coming back, first run back as well. If I get my, the Dubawi filly who is Azalea probably won't run. I was talking to some of the connections with Dermot Weld, and I think he's going to run... Azada, who's very interesting. She won first time out Sayuni at Leopardstown on atrocious ground. Really well bred out of a Galileo mare. Azalea is going to step up and trip, obviously, for the Oaks. But if she were the runner for Dermot Weld here, it'd be very interesting, I think. You like Buttons. To mention another of the O'Brien horses that he might run.
Opera singer's not running.
Opera singer. See, this is the thing. Opera singer would be the rate 180 is basically the best horse in the race.
Yeah.
She had a bit of a setback, but it looks like she might run. But reading between the lines, she'll come on for the run a bit.
Okay.
So again, I sort of prefer to see what.
I thought she was an Oaks. She was, the back end of last season after she won the Masters.
I'd say she'll end up in the Oaks, to be honest.
Really?
Whatever. Yeah, I'd say she will. But I'd say they might start here with the view to bringing her on for the run because she has had a bit of a setback.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting thoughts. What about the Irish 1,000 guineas? I think it's very muddy, this one.
I'm hoping Vespertilio heads here. There was obviously doubts around Estemina when she headed over to the France. She got off the mark in her career in 7 furlongs in the Debutante Stakes. Didn't bother with a maiden, chucked straight into a Grade 2, then finished second behind Fallen Angel in the Moyglare. Went to France on a reappearance in the Pouliche. I thought it was I knew it was a bunched finish at the end. But finished third, beaten half a length on soft ground. Mile trip was a concern, stayed it well, and I'd probably have her the one to beat in this race.
I'd probably back Purple Lily at the kind of prices. Paddy Toomey basically had 3 in the race. 1 looked disappointed at Leopardstown. The funny thing is with Paddy Toomey, I was up to the yard 2 weeks ago. So he's going to run 2 in the race, and it's a question of what will Billy Lee ride a like Rolla, who's unbeaten, or Purple Lily, who just didn't quite get the mile and 2 at Navan. Yeah. But Shamie Heffernan will probably ride the other. So imagine if Shamie Heffernan were to win the Guineas, potentially beating Aidan O'Brien in the second string for somebody else. This could easily happen because Paddy Toomey said to me, what do you think Billy's going to ride here? And I gave an answer, but like I said, it's very hard to know. They're quite different types. Purple Lily, though, the way she travelled at Navan, she's very, very good. Very good. And bear in mind, Azalea just outstayed her, and Azalea has 4s for the Oaks. So she's a very good horse. Purple Lily for me, but I don't have the prices here, so I'm kind of speculating. But I feel she's going to run a big race regardless.
Well, we're all speculating with regards to the prices. I've made it clear I'm expecting a big run from Buttons. She's run twice this season. Both times I think she's been tenderly handled by...
The Wendler form is good as well.
Yeah, and the Wendler run where one looked disappointing. I think that's a good race. I think that's going to work out quite nicely. And I think she's going to be a better... I could see her winning the Nassau or something like that in time. But anyway. That's a look at the Irish 1,000 guineas. The Tattersalls Gold Cup. Again, we're not entirely certain. We may or may not see Augusta Rodin. Will we see Al Riffa? Probably going to see White Birch. How do you see it?
I like White Birch a lot. You're on about races that Commonwealth Cup like they might lose their status. This is a race that was very much in danger of. The field sizes, Rishi, were very poor. You look at since Helvig Dream won it in 2021, not really, and Luxembourg won it last year.
He franked the form with a win over hurdles.
Was it at Navan? So Aidan would say that this is going to be ground reliant for Auguste Rodin, that he's not going to run if... what's the plan with Elegant Man? He was to run recently and he was scratched because the ground was soft. I really like White Birch. I thought his form last year was outstanding. Maybe he got a soft lead, but he's a proper strong horse who's trained on. And I was talking to George Murphy, John's son, it's just amazing to have a horse like this, all these options. With a horse of that ability who could go a mile and 2, a mile and 4, maybe even a mile and 6, you have so many options open to them. And this race, I would be amazed if he didn't run, and probably will be underestimated because the flashy types like Auguste Rodin will be short in the bed. But I'd be backing him each way, definitely.
Same. I think he's been so honest as well. He looks so straightforward. He looks even more straightforward this season than he was last season. The 2 wins that I've seen him, he sits
just finds plenty
there,
for pressure,
and then he just continues to pick it up. It's been wonderful watching him this season. Well, how do you see?
Yeah, I thought, looking at the start of this year, I thought White Birch would be stepping up in trip as opposed to down to 10 furlongs. But he's shown plenty of speed, and I thought it was very, very good. And he has
run on heavy and soft so far. It's the only thing. This would be quite ground line for him. I think he wouldn't want it good necessarily over a mile and 2 at this trip.
Yeah, and he would also have the option of the Coronation Cup. He ran well in the Derby last year. Auguste Rodin, bits to get his season back on track. How many times have we said that? Form figures of 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0. So it's going to be a 1, isn't it?
I cannot get my head around him because, Aidan was sort of saying the race was a mess in Maidan, which it was, but he was still beating 20 lengths or something, So it was kind of it was just, you're looking at him at times and it was halfway through the race, this is not going to happen. But he doesn't bomb out, he bombs out. He really is. And so I fully expect him, obviously, to bounce back wherever he runs next, because I don't think he'll go on this if it's soft.
I do really hope that they are rewarded for keeping him in training, because it's been so easy for them to retire him to start. And yeah, just
the problem with that is though, like his stud value is so much decreased because of his unreliability. Like, and there would 100% be rumours as to why he's unreliable. They may be false, they may be true, but people will have reservations.
May it be possible that he was kept in training, because they did say that he acted so well on the dirt when he was training. That maybe that might be
absolutely a possibility
at the end of the season.
Absolutely,
where he could clash with Sidia Troy, who was obviously going to end up there as well. Al Riffa, is he going to run?
Heads to the US, I think.
Okay. Is he? Oh, he's going. Okay, that's a shame, because he's very interesting. He's had his comeback run, and obviously he was behind Ace Impact last season and didn't really have a full go at things last season. But I hope that we see him in action soon. He's a very talented horse. Let's move on and talk about the Temple Stakes for the sprinters on Saturday at Haydock. Regional, who's been one of the stars of last season, back in action. He's obviously got a penalty. Is he capable, first time up, of giving that weight away to some good horses like Living the Dream, etc.?
I think so. Won on his reappearance last year at York, and a handicap, albeit. But I went back and watched his runs last year, and I was so impressed. Again, he's another one that ground is important too. Likes the faster ground. He also has the option of the Greenland Stakes over in Ireland, so I'm quite happy the fact that they're due some rain, because it will probably mean that they'll come here. I think they'll come here anyway, over 5 furlongs, given that he's 3 from 3 at Haydock. Like you said, has to concede £5 to rivals, including Living the Dream, who won the Nunthorpe last season. But I think they'll have a bit of a different campaign this year. He'd already had 3 runs before this race last year. But you'd imagine the Breeders' Cup again would be the target, so I imagine they'll probably go a bit more slowly this season with Living the Dream, and he might well need the run. I just thought Regional was just rock solid here. Like I said, 3 from 3 at Haydock, won the Sprint Cup, but shows plenty of pace over 5 furlongs. That wouldn't be a concern for me. And yeah, I thought he was a very good each way bet at 5-1 with Bet.
Yeah, I was surprised he was that price as well. Like, considering how well he is fresh, won the race, won his season return last year. As you say, the penalty wouldn't be a major issue for me. And like the race will probably cut up, as again you just keep an eye on the weather.
Living the Dream 3-1 favourite with Bet365 at the moment. Rogue Lightning 4-1 as Fura, the Australian runner 9-2, Regional 5-1, then 8-1 bar those. I hope Rogue Lightning runs well. After he was gelded, he put together a lovely sequence of performances and was arguably unlucky in the Abbey. Could potentially have won that. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. He actually goes well fresh, so I can see him running very well. But it's an awkward race, first time up, knowing where everyone wants to be in the picture with Royal Ascot just around the corner. So you with Regional as well?
Yeah.
John? Okay, all right.
I saw an interview with Ed Bethel, and he said he's kind of got 3 big targets through the year, and it would be this and the Sprint Cup at the end of the season. But they've said, obviously, fast ground is important to him, and it was a bit of a rarity last year, the fact that we had good ground for the Haydock Sprint Cup. So I think they'll have him fairly tuned up for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Sandy Lane Stakes also takes place on the same day at Haydock. This is obviously for the 3-year-olds, and it's the likely port of call for the return of Vanique, top-class sprinting tour last year. 8-11 favourite at the moment. Inisherin 5-1, Jassor 11-2. These are obviously all with Bet365. Esquire, winner of the Greenham, 7-1, and then double figures, 14s. Pandora's Gift, or bigger the remainder. How do you see this one?
This guy is just so exciting. Like, you know, I love sprinters that kind of can do it on soft ground, on fast ground, the way he can race. He's already rated 119, which puts him right up there in terms of nearly City of Troy, in terms of 2-year-old ability. And, like, he just looks so straightforward. Havana Grey, a proper stallion of sprinters. Really excited to see this horse this season. Okay.
I'm quite interested in Inisherin.
Dropping back in trip
after that Guineas run. Yeah, how do you see it?
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Yeah, he's quite interesting. Dropped in trip. But Van Dijk, there's just no question marks, is there? I mean, one on Good to Firm, one on Very Soft in France, whatever we're calling that these days. One at 4 different tracks on ranges of ground. Like, his form of his runs are also working out solidly enough. I know Task Force was a bit disappointing, but yeah, I mean, yeah, he could run kind of a few pounds below 119 on his reappearance and still be good enough to win this. And he's going to be one of the headline acts for Royal Ascot, so I do hope he wins this.
A pure ball of speed is what his rider describes him as. I love that.
I love the fact that they didn't even entertain going for the 2,000 Guineas. Yeah. Like, he is a sprinter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of having the Commonwealth Cup.
Yeah.
Is that you don't have to go down that route to give yourself a chance of winning a Group 1 earlier on. You've got the Commonwealth Cup if you think you've got a horse like that.
I really look forward to that race Royal Ascot this season. It's just going to be, and if presuming Vanique does the job here, we're set fair.
Yeah. Unquestionable dropping back in trip will be an interesting addition to that as well. Okay, so that's a brief look at the Sandy Lane. I do like Inisherin. I think dropping back in trip, just watch him in the Guineas. He travels off a very fast pace with ease under Tom Eaves for the majority of the race, and then just at the end you can actually see him change his legs and just run out of steam. So dropping back in trip to 6 furlongs at Haydock might be quite interesting.
The mad thing about that is they're running him over a mile as a 2-year-old.
I mean, he's only run over a mile, yeah.
So you're like, were they thinking he'd be, taking on Vanique and beating him over 6 as a 3-year-old?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
But he's not going to beat the best milers.
He's not going to beat the best milers.
This is the last chance.
This is the last chance, and he's. Do you know who his dam was?
Yes.
Ajman Princess, who stayed a mile and a half.
Yes, but it's the same family as Rosalian.
There we go.
So he and Rosalian are grand cousins.
That's nice.
So they all go back to Ream 3, and obviously Rosalian's all speed. And Rosalian's by?
Blue Points.
And Blue Points by Shamadal, who is the sire of?
There, Inisherin. There we go. The stuff writes itself.
Yeah. I don't just sit at home watching sport. I'm so boring.
I do love going to the flat meetings now and just seeing the sires whose dads I remember. Like, what I couldn't believe was that Frankel has already had a horse whose son has won an Arc. The Cracksman's son has won an Arc. Frankel for me was like a couple of years ago. It happens quickly.
Yeah. I love the way that you've obviously done TV before. You've brought Frankel into the equation so lovely. Yeah. Because on Thursday there's an excellent card potentially on show at Sandown. And Frankel's brother, Kikuli, is set to line up for the Heron Stakes. That's one of the races I'm looking forward to. There's also the Henry II, the Brigadier Gerard, named after one of the greatest horses that ever walked on earth. There's the National Stakes as well. So there's some good racing there. If any of you have a view, either of you have a view on any of those races?
No, but I'm looking forward to seeing this Kikuli, by Kingman. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. What is the expectation for this horse going forward?
Well, I thought he was pretty good when he won it at Newmarket.
I actually missed all of this. There we go.
He looked in a bit of trouble, but after you watch the race again, right at the end, he's going on, and he's green coming down the dip. He's wanting to go forward, but his head is slightly skew and then when he hits the rising ground, the last 50 yards or so, it's the pennies dropped and he's going away from them. Exciting. That's a good race, though. There are lots of untapped potential in that.
Yeah, I was actually a bit disappointed with the declarations, to be honest. I thought Trawlerman would probably head to the Group 2, is missing that. I thought Okeechobee might run in the Brigadier Gerard, and he's missing that. The one horse that has been declared that I was really looking forward to seeing was Hawaiian. Runs in the National Stakes. Was a really impressive winner for Richard Hannon on debut. That was at Newbury, sent off 11 to 8 in what looked a strong-looking novice race at the time. So he's going to be nice in that race. There was a few later on that I was quite interested in. I was blown away by Sea Just in Time. At the Guineas meeting on that Friday. Was a really impressive winner. Connections decided to miss the Musidora Stakes and aim a little bit lower to go a bit softly with her. The form of that victory was boosted.
Soft approach. What?
The form of that victory was boosted by the second Precious Jewel, won at Newmarket by 4 3/4 lengths. Beating well-back stablemate that day. She has all the right entries later on in the season, the Ribblesdale, the Irish Oaks and the Arc. She's definitely going to be a Group 1 filly later on in the season. 6 to 4 with Bet365, a standout price. Tom Marquand is also jocked up on Chorus in the race, though. So just hold your bets for the meantime. But yeah, See Just in Time would take my eye in the... what is the race called?
Well,
Height of Fashion Stakes at Goodwood.
Goodwood, yes. The Height of Fashion Stakes. I'm trying to remember what they used to call it back in the old days.
Yeah.
It was so when the predominant was the Colts trial and the Lupe.
Wow.
The Lupe, that's what it was. When there was actually a trial for the Oaks and the Derby, those two races, Troy won it. Right, I liked Hawaiian in the National Stakes as well. I thought that was a really good performance because he was actually quite keen first time up. Yeah, he found a bit at the end to see off what I think is a good horse from the Clive Cox stable. And although not loads of winners have come out from the race, horses have come out and run well in behind. So I think it worked out quite nicely. Keys Chorister, Is she in the Henry II? She's hopefully going to continue the improvement that she showed stepping up to 2 miles. And in the Brigadier Gerard, the 2 horses who've been declared in that race who like cutting the ground, who are they were also entered at Goodwood late in the week, Royal Rhyme and Certain Lad, keeping an eye on those 2, obviously, if the rain comes. Royal Rhyme probably has more potential for what he could do, but Certain Lad will set, if the ground's right, Certain Lad will set a decent standard for him. Those were the 2 horses, but I didn't know whether they might split one go for that. So anyway, but I do like Hawaiian, and massively interested to see what Kukuli's going to do now that he seems to have understood what else he needs to do other than just hang about, eat food and exercise. I think that's it. We're saving our best bets though for later. You got something juicy?
I'm not sure I do. Maybe I do. Yeah.
So now you're teasing us whether you even got something.
Yeah, I'm. It's kind of price dependent, but yeah, I have a couple. I'll give a shout.
Just if John is doing one not price dependent, I'll switch mine round. The other horse I'm looking forward to in Ireland at the weekend is Art Power. Has an unbelievable record at Ireland in his career. If Connection send him back to this race that he won last year, I thought he'd have strong claims of following up. He could only finish 8th, beaten 8 3/4 lengths in the Duke of York last season before winning this. And then he was only beaten 2 1/4 lengths in that same race this year. So it was a much better reappearance, outran odds of 33 to 1. And yeah, he won this by nearly 5 lengths last year. He was deadly. Yeah. So if he headed across for the Greenland Stakes, I thought he'd take a while to beat it.
Art Power, winner of the Champions Day Sprint. So another name to bear in mind. Okay, that is a look at the overall racing picture for the week ahead, but our best bets are still to come. But before we get into our best bets of the weekend, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It's available every weekend with prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. T's and C's apply. So here we go. Time for Steve, Johnny and I to tell you of the horses that we believe will be worth a tickle over the next few days. Okay, Johnny, as our guest, you go first.
I'll go with Purple Lily in the 1,000 guineas. That's the 345 on Sunday, and any sort of easing the ground will be no issue at all, and will hopefully scare some others off. And I liked her prep run. I spoke to Paddy Toomey about this. He didn't mind her being beaten on the basis of the trip. And she lost to a very good horse and travelled all over her. I feel she's going to be overpriced here, particularly if Billy Lee doesn't ride her, which is possible as well.
Okay, Purple Lily in the 1,000 guineas, Irish 1,000 guineas on Sunday at the Curragh. Steve?
I'm going to go fairly obvious. I'm going to go for regional in the Temple Stakes. I just think he's...
It's obvious, it's still 5 to 1 though.
Yeah, I'll back him each way in that, just in case he does need the run. I thought he was fantastic value at that price. Progressed from handicaps last season, won on his reappearance, 3 from 3 at Haydock. Will have no concern over the 5 furlong trip. I'd have slight doubts around Living the Dream. I think he's going to have targets further on in the year than Nonthorpe and the Breeders' Cup. And yeah, the fact that he's 3 from 3 at Haydock. And we're not due that much rain this week at Haydock. I thought he'd take a while to beat him.
Okay, and I'm going to York on Saturday in the 5 furlong handicap, 245. The horse running in it is called Ryder, who's never run over 5 furlongs before, but this is his first time over 5. Travels very strongly in his race. He was quite well fancied at Newmarket on his comeback over 6. Too keen in the early part of the race, yet he made a very good move 4.5 furlongs out to hit the front, and then just ran out of stamina, ran out of speed because he'd been too keen. It's the first time he runs over 5 furlongs on the Naysmire, which I think is right up his street. His pedigree is outstanding. He's by Dubawi out of Rafuf. I cannot believe that he's not better than he's shown so far. So off his handicap mark, first time down to 5 furlongs, Ryder for Charlie Hills at York on Saturday. So just to recap, Johnny's gone for Purple Lily in the 1,000 guineas, the Irish 1,000 guineas on Sunday. Steve's going for regional in the Temple Stakes, Haydock on Saturday. And I've gone for Ryder in the 245 at York on Saturday.
One horse I did want to give actually was Make Haste. If Make Haste goes to Queen Mary, she's trained by Diego Diaz. I think he's might be from Brazil, but ex-rider. But she's by Blue Point. Is quite well fancied at Nays first time out. bolted up, like absolutely bolted up. And Fozzie Stackett had a winner around that time in Navan, who I was kind of impressed with. She literally destroyed everything that came in front of her that day. And she is, just looking at the odds here for the Queen Mary, which she's pretty much certain to run in, she's going to be around about, give or take, 8-1.
Okay, make haste. Yeah. I mean, a couple of nice first-time out winners in Ireland recently.
Nice spread of trainers as well. Because Aidan's 2-year-olds haven't really. He'd one horse win impressively. No, never horse whose name escapes me first time out, but he's been slow enough to get going.
There was a Wootton Bassett that won.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name.
He also said the last Galileo 2-year-olds aren't much at this stage anyway. Right. So maybe he's. The changing of the sire thing in Coolmore Ballydoyle for me is fascinating, because I think Aidan is struggling to replace Galileo's, quite simply.
Yeah, well, it was such a reliable source of top-class horses for so many years. It's a different story now. I think that's just about it. Any racing trips for you this week?
I might do Haydock for the first time on Saturday. It's like the last big track to tick off the list. And I've either got the choice of the Betfair Chase, which it normally rains, or I can go in the sun on Saturday.
Are you going to go up on Saturday to Haydock? Or are you going to go on Friday?
I don't know yet. Why?
Don't go on Friday. The journey, if you're going by car, is the worst journey on earth. It is absolutely horrendous if you drive to Haydock. I mean, I'm actually feeling sick just right now looking at the camera. Driving from anywhere south of Watford up to Haydock on a Friday.
Do you prefer to do it all in one day?
Either go up early on Saturday morning or late on Friday night. It's one of the most depressing things to do.
You're really making me look forward to my weekend, though.
Oh, no. The racing is great. But the journey there, jeez.
Should I go to the Derby on Saturday week? This is
Definitely go to the Derby.
Haven't been to Epsom. I'm going to Downpatrick on Friday, so that's my next port of call. One of these quirky kind of rural racetracks. It's just great crack, great crowds. Yeah. And it's funny when I go racing. I don't know if you're like this, when the car doesn't look great, but when you go there and you do the study, there's always something.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so when you're there and meeting people and chatting away, it's great. It's like, well, when we were at Newmarket on Friday, we had a lot of fun just chatting to people. Yeah. Friendly bunch, most of them, unless it's purple with a white cap. It's a bit awkward, but the rest of it is hilarious and fun. I'm just jesting. Right, that is it for this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thank you very much to Steve and to Johnny for joining me for this episode. Hope you've enjoyed it. As always, if you've liked what you've watched or heard, then leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. Thank you for the comments last week. It's very good feedback. Of course, we'll be back next week to look ahead to one of the greatest sporting events in the world, the Derby at Epsom, and we'll be doing it in the company of Andy Holding. But for now, from Johnny, Steve and myself and the Racing Weekly team, bye-bye.